welcome to the Real Stuff podcast. This morning we have a very special guest who has been with us many times, Mr. Debon Panton, and today he will take us into a very, I would say, unique but very interesting topic, home brewing. So Debon, if you could tell our listeners, our new listeners, a little about yourself and then about your topic.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Moderator. Listeners, I am Debon Panton. I live in Kingston, Red Hills, Jamaica, sorry. I met Flavius at one of the Maroon, I think it was Charleston. No, as a matter of fact, I met you with Pam Hall at one of those meetings that we had earlier. And from there, I was made to understand that, you're a central part of the Charleston Maroon celebrations. And, I did a few articles with them a couple of years ago. But since COVID has come and messed up everything, I haven't been writing much for the Charleston thing. I think they started about this year, but they have sort of abandoned the magazine. Is that so, Flavius?
Yeah, for now, yes.
Okay, so it has been abandoned for now. All right, but as Flavius has said, I've been on this program a little, for a little while now, and I've spoken on a couple very interesting topics. Sacred dwarves are one of them. I spoke on God rings and sacred talismans, that kind of stuff. Sacred symbols and talismans that included, the discussion on God ring and, Normally I speak on spiritual aspect, well, today I'm speaking on spirits as well, but a different kind of spirit. Not what they call the non-corporeal entity, that is entities without a physical body. The ones we're going to be discussing today have a physical body of sorts, but that physical body is liquid, and it can also be solid, but it depends on the bottle in which you pour it. So home brewing is what I'll be looking at. It really is a hobby of mine, a passion I've had for a number of years now. Although I'm just in the process of actually getting involved in it, Persons who work from home, such as myself, there are times when you're working on research projects, as I'm doing now, and you need to take a break and to, as I say, clear out your head. So it's good to have other hobbies, and this one has served me very well. Now, Flavius, I'm going to share the screen.
Yeah, go ahead, yeah, man.
Are you seeing that?
Yeah.
All right, let me get the PowerPoint started. Okay, well, this is our opening screen, and on the bottom left, yeah, on the bottom left, you see Spirits Brewery. That's not a registered company; it's just a name I ascribe to my operations at home, and I list myself here as Brew Master. It's not an official title; it's just a title I borrowed, So, number of different types of brews. We're gonna go through about maybe 6 or 7. I don't quite remember how much. Then we're gonna look at some of the tools and equipment that are used. And the bottom line is, although it is a home brewing operation, it still varies in size. Of course, it cannot compare in any way to the Anheuser-Busch and the moles and all of those D&G in Jamaica. It is a home operation. Nonetheless, you've got large operations and you've got small operations that function on what we call a shoestring budget, very, very small. So we're going to look at some of the basic equipment, all right, that are used. Then we look at some of the ingredients that go into home brewing. And we're going to end by looking at, the terminology, all right, some of the terminology.
Yeah.
If you're going to be home brewing, you're gonna need to understand the language. You know, like all industries or all disciplines, it has its own language. You know, and you need to understand what they mean, what some of the words mean. By and large, it's English, standard English, but there are a couple words that you may see here that have different meanings within the particular industry. An industry. Now, the types of brews, you've got meads. Meads is really water and honey, and you know, fermented. Sorry, that was a mistake. Mead is water sweetened with honey. That should have been honey, not sugar. All right, that should have been honey. That's a mistake on my part. Sorry about that. And all of these are fermented brews, and by fermented, I mean you put yeast in it, and the yeast feeds on the sugars and produces carbon dioxide and alcohol. All right, so these are all alcoholic, but they're not brewed to the extent where you could actually get intoxicated, although some of the wines can be very strong. Percent alcohol by volume. And alcohol by volume is a term that I'm going to be looking at later on the terminology. So to give a better example of what that, a better description of what that is. Then we have cider. Cider is apple juice sweetened with sugar. This is sugar now. Remember, mead is sweetened with honey. That was a mistake on my part. Cider is apple juice. All right. Now, mead, what determines whether something is a mead is the sweetening agent. Is really honey. All right. Cider, what determines whether it's cider is the ingredient apple juice. All right. Then you've got perry. This is more a British term. It involves using English pears, kind of similar to cider. Tastes kind of similar, I guess. But just instead of pear juices, instead of apple juice, this one is made of pears, and this is sweetened with sugar as well. Then we have what is called sizer. This is apple juice sweetened with honey. So this sizer is a kind of mead. All right, you've got sizer, which is apple juice sweetened with honey. Then you've got wine. This is grape juice, and this is sweetened with sugar. All right. Grape juice produces wine, and it is sweetened with sugar. You've got what is called kombucha, which is really regular tea, sweetened with sugar and fermented. Like I said, all of these are fermented drinks. So they're fermented beverages. So they all have some content, some alcoholic content. All right. But again, not well. I guess it depends on the individual. Not enough to get you actually fully intoxicated. All right. Then you've got this thing called capsicum ale. Capsicum ale is really a fruit juice that, you know, that is pepper. You use pepper, capsicum. This is where the capsicum ale comes in, and it's sweetened with honey. So this too is a kind of mead. All right, all the drinks that are sweetened with honey, you know, these are meads. All right. Now, next, well, as a matter of fact, there's one more, the mellow ale. This is fermented fruit juice sweetened with honey. Really and truly, cider is a mellow ale. Capsicum ale is a mellow ale. Anything sweetened with honey is a mel or a mead. Mel is from the Latin word for honey, I think, and so that's why you have them ending with the word mel, with the suffix mel. Mellow mel is regular tea or black tea sweetened with sugar, sweetened with honey, and fermented. Sorry. All right, that's the mellow mel. Next, we're going to be looking at some of the equipment. Now, like I said, home brewing it started out as something that people do in their home, a small operation. So you may not have access to a lot of advanced equipment, you know, electronic, this and electronic that. In place of having a brewing kettle, you probably just have a five gallon bucket. You know, I'm going to be looking at showing what these look like. This is the brew bucket, you know, regular 5 gallon bucket, although they also come in 6 gallons and 7 gallons as well. This is used as a primary fermenter. Primary fermenter means the first stage fermenting. This is where the yeast is put in, and it is covered and allowed. The yeast is allowed to feed on the sugars and produces, you know, carbon dioxide, which some of which gets dissolved back into the liquid itself. So sometimes you have some fermented drinks and it has a tinge of carbonation to it. That is the carbon dioxide that has been dissolved in the liquid itself. and it also produces alcohol, hence, you know, the alcoholic content. All right. This is the brew bucket. First stage of fermenting. Then you've got the second stage. These show two different what you call carboys. The one on the left is a glass carboy. I don't like them. They can be dangerous. Very heavy, and if they fall to the floor, that's it. Everything is destroyed. On the right side, the plastic one, which is it says better bottle here, but I'm sorry for putting up something with a logo. But you can get them in Jamaica. These are the containers that you see normally, that you normally see turned upside down on some of the modern water coolers, the 5-gallon things, with the water and the glub when you get in the water out of it. You know what I'm talking about, Flavius?
Yeah, man. Oh,
These
yeah.
5-gallon buckets. All right. All right. What this is, after the primary stage fermentation is finished, the information, not information, the liquid is siphoned off to another container. This is that other container, the secondary fermentation, and fermentation is allowed to continue. The problem with leaving it on the first in the primary fermentation is that at the bottom of that, you normally have, when you're making fruit wines, you normally have whether it's pineapple or melon or mango or apples, whatever fruit you're using. As a matter of fact, not just fruits, rhizomes are used, or roots, carrots, and I've seen what's it called, beetroot,
Okay.
carrot wine, beetroot wine, and you know, any other thing, naseberry wine. These are fruits. Those are naseberries are fruits, but any solids you have, that will be placed in the primary fermenter. I can go back to it to show you. Everything will be placed here in what is called a brew bag, and I'm going to be showing what the brew bag looks like. The brew bag allows the liquids allows the solids to be kept separate from the liquid, but still in contact with the liquid. All right. So after the fermentation is finished here, and I will tell you how you know when fermentation is finished. Whatever is in the container, the juices and all of that, normally up to about 5 gallons, that is siphoned off into this. Either of these. I use the plastic bucket. I don't trust the glass ones. If you go on the internet and look and do a search, Google search for carboy accidents, you see some very heinous wounds. I mean, very deep cuts because the thing actually fell and broke and glass cut somebody, or it actually exploded. And we'll talk a little bit about that. All right. This is your secondary fermenter. Next, you have what is called a hydrometer. The hydrometer. This is a piece of a little handheld device. It's very delicate, very thin glass. At the bottom, you will see the red stuff, that is wax. Below that, you have a number of little balls. I'm not sure whether it's lead or whatever, but nothing inside the hydrometer actually comes in contact with the liquid that you're producing, with that you're making, that you're fermenting. So whether it's lead or steel doesn't really matter. All right. What this does, this is placed in a container with whatever it is that you're fermenting, and it allows you to tell the percentage sugar that is in the liquid. You've got a number of different kinds of hydrometers. We use the triple scale hydrometer. One is for specific gravity, and we're going to get into a little of that. Next one is bricks, and the other one is for estimated alcohol contents. We'll cover that another day. This is just to introduce the listeners to home brewing. This piece of equipment is best you have two. Invariably, you're going to break one of them. And once it's broken, it can't be you can't use it. After just dump it. The sad thing about home brewing in Jamaica is that you don't really have any brewery stores. No store you can go to and buy a hydrometer, sorry. You have to buy it on Amazon or eBay or whatever and then ship it. If you're like me, you contract a courier company that gives you a US address. You ship it to that address, they bring it down and you pay them to retrieve it, right? That's the hydrometer. Next, we call what is called the airlocks. Now, as I said earlier, the yeast, it feeds on the sugars, it produces alcohol, and it also exhales carbon dioxide. I spoke about explosions a while ago. That only takes place whenever the carbon dioxide doesn't have a way of leaving the container. So what happens in this, the secondary container, whether it's glass or bottle, you have what is called a stopper, can be rubber, more than likely is rubber or probably plastic, into which you fit one of these. All right. Within each of these, the one on the right is called the S-type, and the one on your right is the S-type, and the one on the left is the bubbler. They do the same thing. It allows for the emission of carbon dioxide, for the release of carbon dioxide as the yeast exhales. It allows carbon dioxide to leave the fermenter, but it doesn't allow oxygen to get back in. Oxygen at this stage is the enemy of fermentation. It causes what is called vinegar to be formed. So you get apple vinegar or melon vinegar instead of apple wine. You know, if you allow oxygen to get back in constantly. Now, each of these, the airlocks, you fill it with a kind of liquid. Can be a mixture of sanitation liquid and water, or can be a white rum, whatever alcohol you have. What it does, it causes a kind of bubbling action when the carbon dioxide is produced by the yeast, and it's coming up through this. This is put in the stopper. The stopper is drilled with a hole, and this is fit into it. So the carbon dioxide comes up from the end, comes around, and goes through the sanitizing liquid, or whatever liquid you have in there, and goes out of the top. Now, what also happens sometimes, because we're dealing with fruits, we have fruit flies that are attracted to the aroma of the fruit. In Jamaica, I think we call it the small ones sour flies, but they're really fruit flies. They're attracted to fruit. Like if you have fruit peelings in your kitchen or wherever, and it's exposed, then they will go there and they will feed on whatever sugars is in the fruits, etc. Now, this stops them from getting down into the liquid. Sometimes you may find fruit flies have flown in and they drown in the liquid that is in the airlock. In such an instance, nothing is wrong because the airlock has done what it was designed to do. It allows carbon dioxide out, doesn't allow oxygen in, and doesn't allow anything, any insect or anything to go down into your brew, which would actually ruin it. All right. So these are the two types of airlocks. I use the one on the right, the straight one. I prefer that one. That can be dismantled. It comes in 3 pieces. The outer housing, as you see here, and inside, if you look carefully, it looks like something is turned upside down. A container turned upside down. That's the middle piece, and the top is a cap. The cap has some small holes in it. You know, small enough to allow carbon dioxide out, although there are times when some small fruit flies do in fact get in through the holes, but they get down in the liquid and they drown there. They can't, you know. All right. Next thing we're looking at is the thermometer hygrometer. A couple times already in this presentation, I've made a mistake. You know, I said hygrometer instead of hydrometer. Well, the hygrometer is simply something that you use to know what's the humidity. 67% are shown on this one. I must admit, I prefer the old analog type thermometers and hygrometers. But this is one of the modern day ones with battery operated. You have dual scale, can either be Celsius or Fahrenheit, and also allows for the time, 1206 as shown here, and 67% humidity. Humidity is important because the yeast that you use, and there are a number of different kinds of yeast. Some yeast requires to operate within a certain degree of humidity, percentage humidity. So what this does is tell you what's the humidity at your local area. All right, within my brewing room, I know what the humidity is, I know what the temperature is, and well, the time is standard across Jamaica, but the humidity and the temperature depends on where you are. All right. Next, you have the Art of Siphon. Earlier in the presentation, when we're looking at the primary fermenter, I said when the fermentation is finished, you transfer the liquid from that to the secondary fermenter, to the carboy, whether glass or plastic. This is the device that is used to allow you to do that. It allows you to just, you would have grown up in Jamaica, I've seen people suck gas out of a gas tank, right? Flavius?
Done it. I've done it many times.
Yeah, I've done it too. But you can't do that with wine. Certainly not
Okay.
if you expect to be giving people wine. They can't be
Yeah,
sucking in sucking the gas out of the tank. Sometimes some come up in your mouth.
of course.
The Art of Siphon does that, you know, very, very easily. The only thing is your source has got to be on a higher level than the
Yeah.
destination.
Mm.
So if you're transferring from the primary, the 5 gallon bucket, that has got to be on a table. I transfer into the secondary, the carboy has got to be on the floor. It has got to be
Mm.
at a lower level than the primary. All right.
Mm.
The glass tubing is still laying down with the white thing at the end. That is what is called a bottle filler. If you look closely at the end of the arm, one end of the bottle filler, you'll see like something is attached to a little button there. That is normally spring loaded. That allows the transfer to start or stop. You put it down in the arm. You attach the end of the hose from the auto siphon to the other end of the bottle filler, and you put the bottle filler down into the arm, the secondary, and you operate the siphon. There's a pumping action that you use. At some other point, maybe I can show you a video about how it works. But what happens is that it allows you to just do a smooth transfer. There's no wastage, nothing at all. Particularly if you're moving like from and to equal size containers. The 5 gallon bucket to the glass carboy. The carboy I normally use is a 5 gallon one. And the plastic bucket is 5 gallons too. So you're not gonna get any wasting, all right? That is the auto siphon and the bottle filler. Next we have mixing paddle and drill mixer. The white one is plastic, and that's the mixing paddle. After you put all your fruit, you crush them and whatever it is in your 5 gallon container, your primary fermenter, and you add your sugars. And there are some other considerations to know how much sugar to add, and that depends on the yeast that you're using and the percentage by volume alcohol that you want. Once all of that is done, you use your paddle to sort of mix it. And if it's thick enough, you attach one of the drill mixers to a drill, regular hand drill, and you put that down. And it allows for smooth mixing very, very quickly, because the drill, as you can well imagine, spins much more quickly and is more efficient than mixing it by hand. But the hand paddle does in fact come in handy from time to time. So as a home brewer, you have to have one of that. All right. The drill mixers on the right, I show 3 different types. They come in all different configurations. The fancy curl, regular curl, and the square looking one. It doesn't really matter as long as the drill is spinning and the liquid is being mixed. Everything is fine. All right. Next, we're looking at bottles. There are as many different types of bottles as you can well imagine. Number of different types. The problem I have in Jamaica is that I have one bottle supply that I have to buy from. And the problem is, if sometimes the staff may not be so pleasant, but unless you're willing to import it into the country, in which case you may get some breakage. It doesn't really make sense. But the bottling is important when you finish brewing your wine and aging it, whether it's fruit wine or mead or cider or cider, whatever it is. You need to pour it. You use the auto siphon again, and you pour it in this from your secondary fermenter into this. And of course, you're gonna need caps or stoppers, corks. The cork on the right is what you call a straight cork, and on the left you have tapered. Now you also have different kind of bottle stoppers. You have the screw type, like the regular like your regular, which one is that? The true juice, orange juice containers where you actually screw it on.
Yeah.
Regular plastic screw top, right? And you have what is called the swing tops. These are some metal things that almost like clamps.
Yeah.
Right? Sorry, I don't have an example to show you, and you have different kinds of corks, but we're not going to get into that. That's another presentation, all right? But suffice to say, once your brew is finished aging and you bottle it, you need to have a way to secure it within the bottle. The corks or stoppers, whichever one you're using, all right? Next, these are the bottle corkers. If you're using bottle cork like these, you're gonna need one of these. The one on the left, like the upside, like the W, that is for if you have like a small quantity of bottles that you're gonna be corking. You're doing it for your family, 20, 30, maybe up to 50. That's fine. You use them as a manual operation. The other one, the one on the right, is a floor model. This is also manual, but it's more, I guess you'd call it industrial strength bottle corking. It's more efficient, easier, and cleaner to use. This one on the left.
I'm not seeing the one on the right.
You're not seeing the one on the right.
No, just a part. Okay, yes.
You see it now?
It's gone again. Gone again. Okay. It came a while ago.
I don't know what would cause that.
But it did come a while ago, you know. You have to move.
Right. You have to start the presentation and drag the graphic over a little more.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, man.
All right.
Okay, right. That's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
Oh,
let me see if I can find back on. It's okay, I'm gonna find it back.
If I move it again.
Is here now?
Yeah, it's there now.
All right. The one on there on your right with the handle and standing upright. That is more, that's closer to an industrial style bottle corker. And that is for when you have like 60, 70, 80 and you just put them in and just those two motions. Whereas the one on the left, the double looking one, is a little more involved, Yeah. You have to press both of them together and it pushes it down in the cork, and sometimes it kind of squeeze one side of the cork and don't touch the other side, one edge and don't touch. It's not as nice to use as the one on the right. All right, but it is usable. I think the one on the left, the model came from out of a Portuguese model. I don't quite remember where the one on the right, how that originated. pH meter is another very important thing to use. The problem is yeast operates best within a particular pH range. All right, and as I will say a little later, there are a number of different types, types of yeast, and each has its own, I don't want to say personality, but they have their own requirements. Yes, that's more accurate, more requirements. Some operate better within a particular pH range, others not so much. This tells you where you are in terms of the pH, and if it's too acidic, you can add things like what you call chalk to reduce or to increase the pH range, make it more neutral. Or if it is too neutral, you can add like acid blend to make it a little more acidic. But this is the measurement. This is the tool I use to measure your pH range. All right. Again, it's just you want the yeast to be happy. If you have happy yeast, then you get a happy product. If your yeast isn't happy, if it is stressed, you may get like vinegar. Or you remember that thing that we used to make in chemistry lab in high school, the hydrogen sulfite, I think it is.
Yeah.
The stink bomb. you get that kind of smell.
Yes.
And although it does clear after a while, you don't really want to have an aroma like that in your wine, or whatever, whether it's mead or whatever you're making, fruit wine or table wine. All right. So this is what you use to know where you are and to how to do it before you actually pitch your yeast. And pitching is another term I'm going to be looking at. All right. Earlier we spoke about fruit particles, melon, pulp, and whatever you're using, pear and cherries, depending on the wine, on the wine or the fruit the brew that you're making. Mangoes. In Jamaica we eat a lot of mangoes, melon, and all of that. In order to keep that separated from your liquid, the juices, you put the fruit particles into this what you call a brew bag. They come in various sizes. The container here, it looks like a steel pot, but it could just as well be your 5-gallon primary container, primary fermenter that I showed earlier, the 5-gallon bucket. You blend your melon or whatever, crush it with a potato crusher or whatever, and you put it inside here, and you leave it in there for primary fermentation, so that the yeast can extract all the flavors, and all the flavors can be infused into the liquid, and the yeast is happy and all of that. Now, when you go into your secondary fermenter, this is where you take this out. You take out your brew bag and squeeze out whatever juices may remain with the pulp. But the brew bag is there primarily to keep the physical fruit, separated from the juice. All right. You've got a kitchen scale. Now, obviously, it has got to be waterproof. Now, when you're using, when you're putting in sugars, sweeteners, or sugars or honey, it is normally done by weight. 2 pounds of sugar, 3 pounds of honey, that kind of thing. That is where this comes in. And because it's on the kitchen counter with you, it has got to be waterproof. That makes sense, right?
Yeah, oh
So,
yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah. Sanitizer. There are a number of sanitizers on the market. These are what you call no-rinse sanitizers. The one that I use is Star San. Now, it's important once you crush your fruit and you put it in your 5-gallon container, your primary fermenter. You normally use some inclusions to some ingredients to what you call kill wild yeast. You have your own yeast that you're going to be using. And outside of that, you've got to ensure that everything is spick and span in terms of cleanliness, or the bacteria will, corrupt your liquid, and you will get some off flavor and off smell, and you find fungus growing in your ferment and that kind of stuff. You have to end up dumping or discarding the whole thing. This is where Star San comes in. It's what is called an one step. It's a no-rinse sanitizer. You pour you pour the required amount in the container. You pour your water, you shake it around, and you pour it out. You don't need to rinse it because it itself evaporates into the atmosphere after a while. All right. So with your airlock, because your container is covered, is sealed with your airlock, Star San can actually, the vapors or fumes of Star San can actually, and it is food grade, can actually, escape into the atmosphere through the airlock as well, in addition to the carbon dioxide that the yeast is producing. All right. We're gonna look at ingredients now. Earlier, I spoke about meads as being water sweetened with honey. I spoke about cider as being apple juice sweetened with sugar. Spoke about perry, pear juice sweetened with sugar. Spoke about capsicum ale, which is a kind of mead. It's fermented fruit with seasoned, spiced with pepper. The pepper flavor has got to be there to make it capsicum ale. You have got mellow mel, which is another thing, We're looking at some of the ingredients that are used. Yeast. There are a million different kinds of yeast, each with its own way of converting sugars to alcohol and producing carbon dioxide. The two that I show here are two from manufacturers, two of the more popular manufacturers, Red Star and Lalvin. All right. I myself, I prefer Red Star, although Lalvin does have its own personality, for want of a better term. All right. There are a number of different of yeast. You have yeast for making champagne, yeast for making white wine, yeast for making red wine, yeast for making fruit wine, yeast for this, yeast for that, yeast for meads and all of that, all right?
Where does the self-rising yeast fit into this?
Oh, sorry, that you've got wine yeast and you've got bread yeast. Bread yeast is self-rising yeast. Bread yeast, and yes, and you've got another brand called Fleischmann's. Fleischmann's is noted for yeast, but they are primarily, well, they started out primarily as bread yeast. I'm sure that by now, because of the increase in the size of the brewing industry within the States, within Europe, they would have branched out into, wine yeast as well. All right. So you've got bread yeast and you've got wine yeast. By the way, bread yeast can also be used to make wine. It's just regular yeast. It just works a little differently. It can be used to make wine. But the bread yeast, you get your alcohol content will be like between 4 and 5, 6, maybe up to 7%. Not very strong. All right. But for these yeasts, it can go up to the EC1118 lalvin. I think that goes up to about 18% alcohol by volume, which if you drink enough of it, can get you intoxicated.
Yes.
The Red Star Premier Classique, or formerly known as the Red Star Montrachet, it stops at about between 10 and 12%, and it's better for fruit wines. All right, you get the alcohol, but it also, brings out the flavor of the fruits, which is really what you want in a fruit wine. All right. Okay, yeast. They've got wine tannin. We're gonna go look at some of the other types of ingredients. The apples and oranges or whatever, pear, what you use, mangoes, those are the fruits that you use. These are some of the other ingredients that go into it. Wine tannin, it assists with what you call the mouth feel for the wine. Normally, wine, you don't want wine to be as thin as water. You're drinking a glass of wine, you must feel like, you must have some sort of texture in your mouth.
Body.
Yes, it must be able to coat your tongue. It doesn't have to be like a smoothie. Well, it shouldn't be like a smoothie, but it must have body. This is what wine tannin does. You normally get this out of the fruit, the skins of the fruit, the skins of grapes, that kind of stuff. It's normally made from grapes. And I'm sure that by now they have other sort of other fruits that they use to make wine tannin. But tannin is about mouthfeel and astringency. Astringency is the sharpness of the wine. Not so much tanginess, but something like that. When you take a glass of wine, you must feel it to both sides of your tonsil under your throat when you sip it. Kind of stuff. That kind of thing. Yeast nutrient. Yes, yeast. You sweeten your liquid once you put it in, and fruits already having some amount of sugars. But the yeast sometimes needs something to actually start the fermentation process. That is where the yeast nutrient comes in. And I'm showing you two different brands. Just like how we have various brands of orange juice, various brands of cow's milk, various brands of bread. You've got various brands. You have this one here is LD Carlson, and you have Fermex yeast nutrient. They're both yeast nutrient. Does the same thing, just a different brand. All right. It normally comes with some instructions as to how much, like a teaspoon per gallon, kind of stuff, to get the yeast started. And once it's started, it proceeds at a much stronger pace, that kind of thing. And you have sodium metabisulfite, or otherwise called Camden tablets. Same thing, same chemical, but Camden tablets is the tablet form. Now, earlier I spoke about killing off wild yeast. Now, once you put your fruit, you mash your fruit and put that in your brew bag, and with the juice is coming out with it, and you blend it with, you mix it up with sugar and water, and you have this 5-gallon container of juice. What is already present is what is called wild yeast. This exists in the air, on the skins of fruit, no matter how much you wash them. All right. Now it is up to the brewer to decide if he or she wants to use wild yeast. Wild yeast would give you about between 5 and 7% alcohol by volume. Very weak. Still good enough, palatable to drink, but you may want something a little stronger. You've got to kill that yeast. I'm going to put this in and wait 24 hours before you're pitching your regular yeast, the yeast that you're using. And the yeast that you're using may be Red Star or Lalvin. I showed them a little earlier. All right. So Camden tablets is one tablet per gallon of juice. So for me, the 5-gallon bucket, I'll put 5 Camden tablets in there. And when you crush them and put them in, and you make it rest, cover it so that nothing, because the fruit flies are already attracted to it. Once it is fruit and it is exposed, you cover it with something porous like a towel to allow it to breathe, to allow the Camden tablets to evaporate again. So you put that in and it kills off all the wild yeast that's already there. All right. When you come back after 24 hours, that is when you pitch your regular yeast, the yeast that you want to use to do your fermentation. Okay. All right. We have potassium sorbate. Now in home brewing, there's a thing called back sweetening. This is after you finish your brew. When you taste it, it's a little too dry. You want your fruit wines to always have some taste of sugars, some amount of sweetness. You're making your melon and pineapple wine, your mango wine. You may like your wine dry. I like my wines with a little bit of sweetness. It doesn't have to be sugary sweet, but it must have something that pleases the front of your tongue. Sugars are to the front, bitterness is to the back, etc., and saltness off the both sides. But you want something with a little sweetness. So once you have finished aging, you finish your secondary fermentation. When you do your testing, you find that it is too dry, meaning it doesn't have any sugar. What you do, you add your sugar there, but the risk is because there's still yeast in the liquid, fermentation can resume, may resume, it may start resuming again. So the way to stop that is with your potassium sorbate. All right. And once you sweeten, this is what I call back sweetening. Back sweetening because it is done after fermentation. Normally, you sweeten the juice before fermentation, then you ferment. Then when you taste, if it is too dry, you put your sugar that is back sweetening. And after your sugar, you put your potassium sorbate. Potassium sorbate doesn't really kill whatever yeast is there. It stops it from multiplying, from building, expanding in a colony of yeast. It stops it from expanding the number of yeast cells that are active within the brew. All right. So after a while, those cells would naturally die, and there will be no yeast left within the drink, within the brew. But potassium sorbate doesn't really kill yeast. It just stops them from multiplying. Okay. That's the purpose of potassium sorbate. You got your pectic enzyme. Now, earlier I spoke about fruit wines, melon. When you crush your melon and although you have it in your brew bag, the thing is, pectic enzyme assists with the breakdown of whatever fruit cells are in the brew bag. It assists in breaking it down even further to release more flavors. All right, consider making mango juice with mango chunks compared to fully crushed mangoes. You get more flavor from the fully crushed mangoes. I'm sure you'll agree. This does it like that as well. This assists in breaking down the chunks into even after you crush it in your blender or whatever it is, there are still gonna be particles in there. This assists in breaking down those particles further, thereby releasing more flavor in the wine. All right, that is what pectic enzyme does. We're talking now about sugar. Now, in Jamaica, we tend to prefer to use the darker sugar. The problem with winemaking with using dark sugar is that the darker sugar comes with its own flavor. And sometimes it offsets the flavor, the natural fruit flavor that you're trying to coax out of whatever fruit you're using, whether it's melon and pineapple, carrot, beetroot, mango, whatever it is you're using, raspberry. The flavors that you have worked so hard to coax out with your peptic enzyme and your yeast nutrient, etc. You don't want your dark sugar to come in and just overcrowd it. You want to preserve that flavor when you're drinking a wine. You can actually taste the natural fruit. So the industry has found that white granulated sugar is the best sugar to use for sweetening. All right. Now, because it comes at this stage in the presentation, doesn't mean it must only be used for back sweetening. Once you crush your fruit and put it in the bag, and your juices are coming out, you start your sweetening there. Whether you're adding 2 pounds or 3 pounds, and it depends on the recipe that you're using, and your metal paddle or your drill mix or whatever you're using to mix your fruit juice. All right, it is granulated sugar that is recommended because it is really essentially flavor neutral, and so it doesn't do anything to offset the flavors that you have tried so hard to cultivate, to coax out of the fruits that you're making your wine with. All right. Next, we're going to be looking at some of the terminology. I'll use a couple of them. I'm going to get into a little more details with them now. And we're coming to the end. Must. The crushed fruit, mango, whatever it is, pear, star apple, whatever you're using to make your wine, raspberry, ripe banana, whatever you're using. The crushed fruit in the 5-gallon container, your primary container, the crushed fruit in there in the brew bag, that is called the must, M-U-S-T. All right, and I stayed away from wine, from beer and whiskey and vodka and gin and that kind of stuff. In that side of this, distilling, that is called your mash. All right, you may have heard moonshiners talk about their corn mash or whatever they're using. In winemaking is must. All right, lees. At the bottom of a 5-gallon, once your primary fermentation is finished, at the bottom of your 5-gallon container, you're gonna find fruit particles that have settled. You're gonna find dead yeast. You're gonna find some wispy, things that come out during the fermentation process. These are sometimes byproduct of the yeast consuming the sugars and converting them to alcohol and exhaling your carbon dioxide. Everything that is in the bottom of the bucket is called lees. All right. You will have lees also at the bottom of your secondary container, whether it's a glass carboy or your plastic carboy. You're gonna find lees there to say you're racking. Sometimes your racking is called siphoning off from one container to another. That is called racking. I should have included that here. Sorry about that, I never included it. But once you're transferring from one container to another, remember the source has got to be at a much higher level, like on top of a table, and the destination must be on the floor, lower. Now, whatever is left at the bottom of the bottle or container, you don't want to disturb that because you don't want your wine sitting on that, because it can cause off flavors as well. All right. So whatever is left there, that is the lees. That's the lees. All right. Pitching. Pitching is just another way of saying you're pouring your yeast in the fermenter. Now remember when I said once you use your Camden tablets to kill off the wild yeast, you wait 24 hours and you come back and you pitch your yeast. That is all you do. You put your yeast in the fruit juice in the primary container. That is called pitching. You pitch your yeast. All right. Pasteurizing. Now earlier I had mentioned that the potassium sorbate doesn't kill yeast. It doesn't. The only way to safely kill yeast is through pasteurization. But the problem with pasteurization is that it can actually change the flavor of your wine. So you want to raise it to the temperature at which yeast dies, like I think 142 C. And once it gets there, no, 142 F. Once it gets there, then you keep it there for say 15, 20 minutes, up to 150. And the yeast at that point would have been killed. So fermentation cannot continue or cannot resume once it cools back down to room temperature. All right. That is pasteurization. You don't bring it to boiling, or it will actually affect the flavor. You boil ripe banana, doesn't really taste like nice, fresh, tree-ripe banana. It tastes different. And the same thing goes for wine as well. Same thing goes for all fruits. Cold crashing. Cold crashing is simply placing your wine or your brew in a refrigerator to take the temperature down. That doesn't stop yeast. It doesn't kill yeast either. What it does is make them immobile. It stops them from producing, but they are still alive if yeast are there. So if you take it out of your fridge and leave it on the counter and it comes back down to room temperature and there's active yeast in there, fermentation will resume. All right, so you need to pasteurize first to kill the yeast. Once it comes back down to room temperature, you know that the yeast is already dead. Then you put it in your fridge. And you get it nice and chilled so you can enjoy your brew. All right? Back sweetening. I spoke a little bit about back sweetening already. After your fermentation, primary and secondary, and you're ready to bottle, you taste it and you realize that it is too dry. Dryness in alcoholic beverage means lack of sugar. You know, you taste it, it is too dry. You want to sweeten it back some more, but because you're sweetening it post fermentation, that is why it's called back sweetening. Okay. Alcohol by volume. Earlier I showed what the hydrometer, what it looks like, the hydrometer, the D. It is used to calculate or to show the amount of sugar that is in a liquid. All right. Now, alcohol by volume is the result of a formula. There is some amount of maths involved in brewing and has to do with the first reading, that is once you have put your crushed fruit before fermentation, when everything is there, you put your yeast and all of that, you take a reading from the hydrometer, you make a note. Normally, you expect about 1.090. That's the amount of sugar. It's just a measurement of the amount of sugar. After fermentation, you expect there to be less sugar because the yeast is going to consume the sugars and produce alcohol and carbon dioxide. The second reading is taken. Now, to calculate alcohol by volume, you subtract the second reading from the first reading and multiply, I think, by 132.5. That gives you the percentage alcohol by volume. All right. So when you see your wine is with 12% alcohol by volume, that is what it means. The amount of sugar that was there previously, less how much has been taken out, multiplied by this, with this multiplier. That gives you the alcohol by volume. All right. Well, gentlemen, that is it. We have come to the end. How long did we go?
Not sure, but about 30 minutes, yeah. About 30 minutes.
Oh, 30 minutes. Okay, we did cover a lot of time. There's more I could have said. The bottom line is, each brewer will have their own preference.
Oh,
For instance, of yeast. Each brewer will have their own preference. Each brewer will have their own way of doing things. So these are just general ideas. Okay? And the thing is, right way or no wrong way.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
Your brewing bag.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that made of?
It's made of, some of them are made of like nylon, very finely woven nylon, or very finely woven cotton. I don't like cotton. Cotton tends to, if it remains damp for too long, you have molding that can take place on the cotton. Okay. Normally, some synthetic material, what's we call that material, terylene or some sort of nylon mesh, some very, very finely woven. It's like a strainer, as we say in Jamaica.
Yeah.
The bulk of the solids out of the liquid, out of getting into the liquid. Although the bag with the solids are going to be immersed in liquid, it keeps the solids from spreading all over the liquid. That would make racking a little more difficult.
Yeah.
May keep out the larger particles, Although your pectic enzyme is going to be breaking down and all of that. Those that are broken down fine enough will pass through the sieve and go out. So you need also and you will end up as least at the bottom at some point. As your wine clears. Clearing is just simply the falling away of more of the solids that are there. Once it is crystal clear, it may not be crystal clear like water, but you may have some coloring depending on the kind of fruit, depending on the fruit that you're using. You're gonna have coloring. For instance, in melon, you're gonna have some tinge of pink or because melon fruit itself. For mangoes, you're gonna have some tinge of yellow. But it mustn't be cloudy. Your final brew mustn't be cloudy. Cloudiness implies that there are particles still
impurities. Impurities.
Still in suspension in the right. So once you age it long enough, those fall away and settle to the bottom and become what we call lees. And your racking is just simply transferring via the Art of Siphon from one container on a tabletop to another container at the bottom on the floor, and you leave the lees at the bottom of the source container.
Where do you get granulated cane sugar?
That's a regular supermarket, brethren. Any supermarket, regular granulated sugar.
Okay.
Yeah, man, regular sugar like what we have in Jamaica. I made the mention of brown sugar because in Jamaica we tend to use more brown sugar.
Brown sugar, we do, yes.
But in winemaking, brown sugar can affect the flavor.
Yeah.
When you're drinking, when you're sipping your wine, man, you want to be, as the people would say, you want it to be pleasing to the palate.
Of course. Of course.
You want to taste your natural fruits. You want them to taste as natural as when you were just picked off of the tree.
Yeah.
Wow. So you really couldn't some people use bananas as ripe bananas as sweeteners or guavas. I mean, all of those are good for drink mixes, but for wine, unless you want your melon wine tasting like guava, then You use guava or ripe banana to sweeten it. You have to use granulated sugar.
Sugar, yeah.
Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And I kind of stepped away from distilling. We focused on brewing today. Distilling has a second stage. It starts with fermenting, and then whatever is produced, you distill that. Alcohol has a much lower boiling point than water. So once you put that in a distiller and the temperature begins to rise, the alcohol will evaporate, and that is directed away and cooled to form the whatever final product you're making, whether it's whiskey or vodka or gin or
Okay.
So you start with fermentation. The mash is fermented, then it's put in the bubbler, and you have that thumping sound, and the vapor, the alcohol vapor rises and goes through that thing where they have the water running, and it cools it to settle back in a container. Another container as alcohol, and you have the head and the foot. The head contains some dangerous chemicals, so they don't use that. The foot is also messy, so they use that is in between. They drink that.
Yeah.
But
wow.
It's a very interesting area. It takes some amount of commitment. One has to be patient. I've known people who have wine that they're aging for 3 years. No, I really and truly I can't bother with that. 3 years, I want to drink more wine. So when I make it, I put it down and I leave it there for a month, 2 months. Like no, I'm prepping to make wine for Christmas.
Okay.
3 months I can deal with that. And closer to Christmas, you make regular melon juice drinks for the kids. Kids and grandkids and great grands that come around, cousins, kids are there. You don't really give them wine. Wine is for the adult.
Yeah.
They give them melon pineapple drink, but the adults drink melon pineapple wine, And the aging is normally about 3 to 4 months. So it's just about the right time now. September, October,
for Christmas. Yeah. Okay.
Just about the right time. So all of that, you get that out of the way, and you have it aging a nice, dark, quiet, unlit area in your brew room. You cover the window so light doesn't come in. You keep your airlock on it to ensure that it can breathe in terms of expelling the carbon dioxide. Check on it every month. You do a reading on your hygrometer to see if fermentation is still taking place. Once fermentation stops, you can make it stay some more still.
Yeah.
But you can bottle it and just put it down to age. Once fermentation stops. But if fermentation is still active and you put it in a bottle and seal it, that is when you have what is called a bottle bomb. Because
I can imagine.
Yeast is still producing carbon dioxide, but because it is sealed in the bottle, there is no way to expel the carbon dioxide. So the bottle the pressure continues to build until the walls of the bottle just give out. So that's the kind of explosion I'm talking about. Not the combustible gasoline type.
Yeah.
The thing just bursts, boom. And if you're aging in a glass carboy with glass flying, some of those pieces can fly up to 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 miles per hour.
Wow.
Yeah, the explosion, it can be very violent.
Yeah.
Glass shreds flying like that, the frightful damage to human bodies or animals.
Yeah, man, definitely.
So, like I said, it is something nice to get involved in. And there's a community you can talk to. Most of the communities I find are overseas.
Yeah.
People are very friendly. You're gonna have some jackasses who don't want to tell you anything. But then most, by and large, which is human nature for some persons, but by and large, most brewers, they will share information. I will tell you, look, something happened, your wine is, like sometimes your wine may stall, your fermentation may stall. You set up everything properly, and for whatever reason, the yeast that you put in there, fermentation just has not begun. Fermentation normally starts like about between 2 and about 28 or 30 hours after you seal it in the primary container.
Okay.
You put in your brew bag and with the fruits and you sweeten it and you seal it and you put your airlock in it. how you know fermentation starts, the airlock starts to bubble with the liquid that is in the airlock.
Yeah.
It starts bubbling as carbon dioxide is
Coming out, yeah.
coming out, yeah. But if you have all of that, and 2 days after that, no fermentation, this is what I call a stalled fermentation. That can be for any of a number of reasons. You pull it and look in there, you say, if you see fungus growing there, you know you have to just throw over that. Everything is lost. If no fungus, could be just that the yeast, whatever it is, the yeast just refuse to. Can do that by adding more yeast or adding a different kind of
yeast, yeah.
Yeah, sometimes the yeast that the particular yeast, like you may be using like Lavin D47, which is just another fruit yeast. That stop at 50%. If it's not, you put in some Red Star, whatever it is, Montrachet or Premier Blanc, and your fermentation may start up at that point. But there are a number of things. And you have to ensure once you set it up, everything has got to be sterilized. Your mixing paddle has to be sterilized. Whatever it is you're using, whether it's your drill mixer, that has to be sterilized. Everything you pour, your hydrometer that you're using to take the measurement, that has to be sterilized. And sterilization just simply means rinsing it in your sanitizing fluid.
Okay.
The same starch standard I showed.
Yeah.
Just keeping everything clean. Your hands have got to be clean. You know, you rinse your hand in the same solution till it sterilizes your hand. You can't be talking over the liquid because you know particles from your breath or from your mouth and forth. And that's bacteria there as well. So sometimes you see people in their brew houses making, and you wonder if it's a surgeon because they have the lab coats, the head mask, the head cover, the face mask, the gloves. Everything has got to be properly sterilized. But at the end, once your coke out this, required amount of flavors and your sweetening is ideal. When you finish, you have a wonderful brew to enjoy. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. Oh, yeah. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I'm gonna stop the sharing now.
All right, man. Yeah.
It's just one more thing. I'd like to go back up before I stop the sharing. Where I said, mead is sweetened with sugar. It's actually sweetened with honey. I'm gonna change that.
Yeah.
So that the recording will capture it,
Yeah.
That is what it should look like. Sweetened with honey.
Yeah.
Not. Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna stop the sharing now.
Yeah, man. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Yes, wonderful.
No problem. Okay,
so in generally your brews are normally comes out normally nicely.
Yeah, man.
Okay.
Yeah. It is important that you follow our recipe. I have some recipes that I've made for myself. For instance, you tend not to see pineapple melon, but the appropriate proportion of melon and pineapple is important. Or the melon is very mild. Pineapple is very tangy.
Yes.
So unless you get the mix right, you will either not taste the melon and taste pure pineapple, or if you don't have enough pineapple, you taste mostly melon. But to get the right balance, I have found that for every 2 pounds of melon, you need at least 1 pound of pineapple, not more.
Okay.
That gives you a nice balance. I can share that with the listener, not a problem.
So you share your recipes?
Yeah, man. Amongst bros, you share. Hold on. I feel like I'm gonna sneeze. One second. Oh, sorry. Very sorry about that. I was sneezing. The fan is blowing in the background.
No problem.
But yeah, recipes can be shared. I mean, it's not formal cooking recipes like where you find the chefs have the book of their recipes. You have recipes that you make note of. But like what I said to you a while ago, you have for every 2 pounds of melons, you have a pound of pineapple. Like for I've made melon carrot. I've made pineapple. I mean, the sky's the limit. It's just restricted, just limited to the creativity of the brewer.
Yeah.
To decide what they want to make, But like I think I'm making a wine called maroon. I don't know if I would call it maroon blood. You know, there are some wines that you have Klingon blood, you have dragon's blood. These are some red, obviously red because they use the name. But these are fruit wines. You know, like dragon's blood is just a mixture of 3 berries, like strawberry, raspberry, and blueberry.
Okay.
Or any 3 berries, they call it dragon's blood. You have Klingon blood, which involves some other stuff. So I'm thinking for Jamaica, because our heritage, we want to dig up the maroons, you know, maroon. And I know there are some herbs that they use in some of their rituals.
Yeah.
And I use some of their herbs too. I'm thinking of putting together to be used. I don't know. Talking about that, you have the wines that, you know, you tend not to want too much carbonation. A little bit of carbonation is fine. And there are a number of ways of doing carbonation. I can think of at least 2. You can use yeast, or you can use the carbonation, the CO2 carbonation with the compressed gas that you buy from LPG. I was talking to them about a week and a half ago, where you have the machinery that you use. You have your container with your juice, and you have the CO2 tank.
Yeah.
And you know, it carbonates the drink and come in just like soda.
Yeah.
You shake it up, it go.
Yeah,
but yeah. Drink is very nice. Yeah. Or you can do the same thing with yeast, because yeast does produce carbon dioxide.
Yeah.
But that's a little more technical to do it with yeast, because as I said, you know. So the carbonation using the CO2 tank probably is the best way to go. If you're providing drinks for children, carbonated beverage for children. But the carbonation won't be done in their presence. You know, be done in a separate room, the brew room.
Yeah.
And they carry the carbonated drinks out, and you know, they take up whatever they want. Yeah.
Are you also into liqueurs?
No, I'm not into liqueurs.
Okay.
Liqueurs, honestly, just has not interested me. Not that I think there's anything wrong with it, but it's just that it's just not my thing. The wine thing. A lot of the matcha brewers, male brewers, they brew beer, you know, all kind of beer, melon beer. But for beer, you need the hops and all the malt, barley. And
right. Yeah.
You know, and those are things that are already very difficult to get in Jamaica.
Oh, yes.
But you can go to the brewery store in anywhere in the States. In any city in the States, you'll find a brewery store. You can find all the malts, all the hops, all the whatever you need. In Jamaica, you have to buy it on Amazon.
Yeah.
And sometimes to clear it, you pay more than actual cost of the item themselves.
Yes, right. Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So
it was better to go buy a beer.
Yeah, man, that's what I buy a beer. I mean, the funny thing, though, I know, it's not the same when you brew something and you're drinking it. It's not the same.
I know.
You know, you can always buy a Sangster's sorrel wine or a Sangster's melon wine, a peach wine, whatever. But it's just not the same as when you brew it yourself. But as I was saying, the maroon wine I'm thinking about, I don't know what I'm going to call it. I don't want maroon blood seem kind of gross, you know. But I want to make a maroon wine, and I'm going to make a revivalist wine using some of the because of the studies that I'm doing in my field, using some of the ingredients that I know they use in the ritual.
Yeah.
You know, I've spoken to a number of these people. A lot of them have assisted my research. And with my way of just giving them a bottle and saying, thank you. And
yes.
Really appreciate you. You never had to do it. This is for you from me. Thank you for helping. The kind of stuff, you know what I mean?
Yes.
But that's it. But the maroon thing really has been on my mind. And the revival, coming in now kind of funny. Coming in rituals, some of them kind of grotesque. It's not something you can talk about. But when some of the rituals are done, you know, food is not the thing. It's not the first thing on your mind afterwards. You know, this is some of them, you know.
Yes.
But it's still part of our heritage.
Oh yeah.
you know, and
Mm.
it's my way of just thanking, you know. And yes, they do use blood in their rituals. You
Yeah.
know, right across the Afro-Jamaican spiritual traditions, blood is part of the ritual work.
Mm.
Not every revival is used blood. That much I can say. Not all of them use blood. Some do, some don't. Maroons and the Kumina, they use their blood as necessary, only when necessary though.
Yeah.
And it's not in all rituals, you know. But the wine thing, you know, I find it very interesting. The beer is not for me. I don't drink beer normally anyway.
Okay.
You know?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. But you know, it's a hobby. It keeps you out of trouble. It keeps your mind, you know, occupied. Keeps your mind active.
But it is very interesting, man. It's very involved.
Yeah, man. And I just skim the surface, you know.
So
But
you're coming back to
whole
give
lot
us
more.
You're coming back to
Yeah,
give
man, we
us.
can talk again. No problem.
All
No
right.
problem.
Okay, no
Just
problem.
let me
Yeah,
just,
really,
you know,
I really
think
enjoyed
out.
it.
Yeah, man. Courtney almost kicked on my foot yesterday. Them called me and say, ready for tomorrow. I was thinking it's the 19th. So I spent the rest of yesterday putting this together and part of this morning.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, when I came out to the show this morning, it was about, after I finished it, it was about 11:45, 10:45. So if it was going to be a 10 o'clock presentation, well, I could have started earlier, but I started maybe about 8, so I was finished by about 10:15, just enough time to get a shower. And I finished about 10:30, 10:25 there, so can come back and talk again.
Yeah, man, I really appreciate it. This is really good stuff, man. Really good stuff.
The funny thing is, you know, there are a lot of things that people can do. But unless you talk about it, you might think that you're the only one doing it.
Oh yes, oh yes,
And
oh yes.
This video, when you post it, may stir interest in a number of other people.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, oh yes,
Sorry.
definitely.
May stir interest in a number of other people, you know. That's what happened. All right, guys.
Yeah, man, thank you very much.
No problem. Take it easy. Have a good one.
Okay,
Take it
you
easy.
too.
Yeah, man.
Yes, Debon.
Yeah, man. Cool.
Thanks.
You lead us so full. You belong far away away. Ajuguala lebo buseru. Lida mua, lida sungfula. Lida mua, lida sungfula.
Well, unfortunately, this is it. Till next time. Bless.
All you gotta do is just speak. One word is enough, and I'm no longer so rough. I forget what I was trying to say. I no longer do what I was gonna do, but you're no good for me. That's why me do what set me a pick a flee. Me I fi take away me say. Me I fi take away me say. Me I fi hide like a thief in the night. Me I fi get out of sight. Me I fi take away myself. I fi take away myself. I have to utilize I will.